Hi guys, my name is Nicole Munsemi. I'm from Waterfall Campus and I will be doing my timeline on the dismantlement of apartheid and the road to democracy. Hello everyone, today I'm going to be explaining my timeline poster of the dismantling of the apartheid state in South Africa. Apartheid was a system that divided people by race and gave rights and powers only to white South Africans, and black South Africans were denied the right to vote and forced to live in separate areas and treated unequally. By the late 1980s, the system was collapsing under protest, international pressure, and economic problems. Between 1989 and 1994, 6 major events changed South Africa forever. Let's go through these events step by step. Our first event is the 1989 F.W. de Klerk becoming state president, which we can see on our timeline. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became South Africa's new president after P.W. Botha stepped down. This happened in Pretoria, the government capital. De Klerk realized that apartheid could no longer continue because South Africans faced protests inside the country, trade sanctions, and from outside the country, and thus weakened our economy. Unlike previous leaders, he chose a political reform, changing the system instead of defending it. He allowed more freedom of speech and hinted at negotiations, and opened the doors for talks with groups like African National Congress, the ANC. This event mattered because it was the first real step towards ending apartheid. Without de Klerk's decision to reform, the next steps would not have been possible. On the poster, we can see the image of de Klerk speaking in Parliament. This reminded us that his power came from government and he used it to start change. This change led to our next event, which was Mandela being released in 1990. We are now on to our next event on our timeline, which is labeled number 2, the 1990 Nelson Mandela's release from prison. As we can see on our timeline, the image of him being released. On the 11th of February 1990, Nelson Mandela walked free from Victor Verster's prison in the Western Cape. After 27 years behind bars, his release was broadcast worldwide and gave hopes to millions. Nelson Mandela was not only a leader of the ANC, but was also a symbol of unity and reconciliation, which means he was bringing divided people together. His freedom showed that the government was ready to negotiate seriously, and after his release, Mandela worked hard to calm the anger in the country and encourage people to choose peace instead of violence. This event mattered because Mandela's leadership helped move South Africa from resistance to real negotiation for democracy. On the poster, we can see the image of Mandela walking out of the prison gates with the fist raised. The powerful pose became a worldwide symbol of victory and hope. And this release gave momentum for the government to start removing apartheid laws in 1991, which leads us to our next event. In 1991, the repeal of the apartheid laws, as we can see on our poster. In 1991, the Parliament in Cape Town officially repealed or cancelled the last major apartheid laws. These included the Group Areas Act, which forced people to live separately by race, and the Population Registration Act, which classified everyone by race. Ending these laws was very important because it removed the legal foundation of apartheid. But even though these laws were gone, South Africa still faced economic and social inequalities that could not be fixed overnight. This event mattered because it was the moment apartheid officially ended in South Africa, and it cleared the way for non-racial democracy. On the poster, the image of the two hands breaking free from chains shows freedom from the unfair laws that kept people apart. With the apartheid laws being removed, the next big question was whether the white population would accept democracy, leading to the 1992 referendum. On our timeline, we can see the next event, which is the 1992 National Referendum on Political Reforms. On the 17th of March 1992, President de Klerk held a white-only referendum across the country. White South Africans were asked if they wanted the reform to continue. Nearly 69 voted yes. This was important because it gave de Klerk mandate or official permission to carry on with the negotiation for democracy. Even though black South Africans could not vote in this referendum, it reduced oppositions from right-wing groups who wanted to keep apartheid. It also showed that many white South Africans had accepted that apartheid was finished. This event mattered because it gave the reform process legitimacy and cleared the path for the final negotiation. On the poster, we can see the image shows hens putting votes in a ballot box with the words yes. This represents the choice of change made by most white voters. But just when progress was being made, the assassination of Chris Hani in 1993 nearly destroyed the transition. This leads us to our next event, which is 1993, the assassination of Chris Hani, which we can see on our timeline. In April of 1993, Chris Hani, a popular struggle leader, was assassinated outside his house in Boksburg, Gauteng. Hani was admired by many young people for his courageous and his fight for justice. His murder caused a huge and angry protest across the country, and there were real dangers of civil war. At this moment, Nelson Mandela addressed the nation on television, urging South Africans to stay calm and unite. His speech stopped violence from exploding and showed he was ready to be the country's leader. This event mattered because it was the most dangerous crisis of the transition, but Mandela's leadership turned it into a reason to speed up democracy. On our poster, we can see the image of Hani with a candle and a dove that shows both mourning for his death and hope for peace, and then that came afterwards. This crisis pushed leaders to set an election date, leading to the main event, the 1994 elections. The first democratic elections is our next time point on our timeline. This crisis pushed leaders to set an election date, leading to the 1994 election. As we can see, this leads us to our next event and the last event on our timeline. 1994, first democratic election. Finally, between the 26th and the 29th of April of 1994, South Africans of all races were able to vote for the first time in a national election. Millions of people waited in long lines across the whole country, from big cities like Johannesburg to small rural villages. The African National Congress won, and Nelson Mandela became the first South Africa black president. This was the first true start to democracy, a system where all citizens have the right to vote and choose their leader. And this event mattered because it officially ended apartheid and marked the beginning of a new democratic South Africa. On the poster, we can see the image of the long lines with Nelson Mandela smiling, and shows the joy and unity of South Africa for the first pre-election. As we head off to our conclusion, we have reached the end of our timeline. As we can see, each event on the timeline built on the one before. De Klerk's reform in 1989 opened the door. Mandela's release in 1990 gave hope. The repeal of apartheid laws in 1991 ended racial separation in law. In 1992, the referendum gave political strength, and the crisis of Chris Hani's assassination in 1993 tested the nation's unity, and the 1994 elections gave freedom to all South Africans. Together, these events dismantled apartheid and created a democratic South Africa. The journey shows us that leadership, unity, and courage can overcome even the most unfair systems and events. Thank you.